Hello, hello.
Good morning, Chirag.
How are you?
Excited. I get to hear some nice stuff from you.
Oh yeah, I'm sad that there are not more people here because this will be a come to Jesus moment for many of us today.
Feeling it will be for me.
I agree. All right, let's hop into this and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A in the end. Running profitable teams, the economical breakdown for team leaders. Where is Robin when I need her to be here? All right, so let's go into this. We're going to go through what does it really cost to run your team? What's the value of your time and staff time, fixed versus variable costs, creating profitable splits, and obviously my favorite part, the applied learnings. So if you look at this little funnel here, these are all the things that you spend money on. Technology, coaching, subscriptions, there's always variable one-off costs, marketing costs, staff costs, as well as I put that one in white because it's the one that no one factors in, the personal cost of your time, right? You spend time with all of your team members. And when you look at the value of your time, it's the value is if you were in production, right? If you spent the same amount of time as you spent with team members as you did on your own business, what would that net you at the end of the year? And I know a lot of people are like, well, that's not what I started a team for. But you got to remember, your team is a business, and the air to your business to breathe is income, right? So these are all the things you have to consider. And this is why having a really built out aligned value proposition is important, because it clearly communicates the value that you add to a team member in all of these different buckets. Because if not, they'd have to pay for all of these things on their own. So the value of your time, right? Your time, staff time, right? So Nelson has Robin, who he doesn't want any of us to steal on his team. And so her time is based on a salary. So given how many hours she spends with each agent, that is factored into a profitable split. Your time as a team leader, it's the most valuable time that you have. That is factored in too. So what I always say is a good way to use this is create all of your agents as contacts in your Compass CRM. Now, every time you meet with them, log an activity. If they call you, log the activity, right? Because the first thought is, and what you're going to think is, but this shrug takes a lot of time. It's going to feel like it's overwhelming and I'm not going to be able to do this. But the reality is, if you don't do this, you have no clue how much time you're really spending with people. And just remember, a 5-minute task done 25 times, 300 times a year is 25 hours. Think about how many of those I have a question. Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 10 minutes? I want to run this idea by you. I have a problem with my deal. This stuff happens all the time. Now, fixed cost versus variable cost, right? Fixed costs or staff costs, listing marketing, your time. Variable costs are lifestyle shoots, team outings, one-off marketing campaigns that you do. And you need, when you're budgeting and you're looking at net profitability, to understand the two differences here and what you spend on each side of the fence. So today's session is really simple, direct, and to the point. Like, we can't belabor these points because they're all numbers. And in the end, when you look at these, numbers don't lie. Gross versus net, right? Gross income is total revenue. Compass split is what you pay Compass. Expenses could be the cost of sale, and the net income is income after split and expenses. So you should be paying your agents off of this number here, the 59,000, because that's what you actually net. Now, that goes back to being able to sell this to people correctly and explain it to them, right? So a lot of team leaders don't like to tell people they're split, which I will never know why. So if I earned $80,000, I'd like to explain to them, right? Like $15,000 goes back to Compass. $6,000 is the cost of this sale, right? And it depends on how you want to factor cost of sale in, right? It could be a fixed expense for employee time that you know that they're going to spend on a listing, marketing. A lot of people have marketing advisors, right? There could be hard costs like pictures and videos and other things like that. So that's your net income. You should pay off your net income, not the gross, and not the 65,000 after your Compass split. You need to take your expenses off the top. That is always my recommendation. Now, creating profitable splits. Look at how much you made off an agent in total. That is your agent net, right? So per agent productivity is a number I like to use. That is how much money you made off of each agent. That's their per agent productivity. Everyone needs to have production minimums. If they live, breathe in your air, and use your resources, there has to be a standard for how much you have to do on the team. And that's how you could financially forecast out expenses versus income and what you're actually earning from your team members. And you need to factor in fixed and variable costs in this process. Now, I call it the rule of one extra deal. If Wayne or John Porter or Nelson or Yvette or David or Gary could sell one more house and make more money than they would off an agent an entire year, just get rid of the agent. Because it's much easier to sell one more home in a year than it is to deal with another human being, lay out money to make less money. Because if you look at the time and expenses put in versus what the net is, the numbers don't add up. And so I want to leave this more as a discussion. I'm going to go through this because a couple people just went in again, but you need to start tracking your time. Create a contact in your Compass CRM for every single agent. Now, you want to log the activity of how much time you spent with them, what they're asking you for, because it's also the only way to know how to make better onboarding training or FAQs. And you need to build a budget for the rest of the year. Well, all right. Well, let's answer your question. While you build the agent as a superstar, there has to be, look, if you have a production minimum and somebody's a superstar, they're going to hit that numbers because rock stars hit their goals. Right. So there's a concept I called activity output results. If I show up to your office every day, Nelson, and I do a bunch of activities and I'm sending emails and I'm doing work, people think I did my job. Well, the result should be, if I'm going to make this up, a $50,000 GCI minimum. So their activities and outputs will drive that result of $50,000. And I can be confused in thinking I show up to work, I play on my computer, I talk on my cell phone, I'm making money. So let me go through this just one more time for everybody. It's a lot of information to take on in a short amount of slides. So profitable teams. The first and most important thing is to understand what it actually costs to run your team. So if I'm all of you, I'm going back into my bank statement, my QuickBooks, I'm talking to my accountant, I'm adding up the monthly costs, multiplying it by 10 for technology coaching and subscriptions. I'm identifying all the variable costs that are not my own. I'm identifying all the marketing costs that are not my own. I'm identifying the staff costs and assume that your staff member spends 20% of their time with you. I'd factor in 80% for the team. And then you need to start factoring before you start tracking some sort of delta for your time. You need to know the value of your time based on your sales and the value of your staff time. You need to factor that into the spend. Factor that into how much you actually make off of each agent. Think about fixed versus variable, right? Fixed staff, listing marketing, your time are some examples. Variable costs, lifestyle shoots, team outings, one-off marketing, or any other money that you'd spend on an agent. Now pay off the net, right? Gross, I earn $80,000. My split to Compass is $15,000. My expenses are $6,000. You want to pay off of 59,000, not 65. You should be taking all your expenses off the top. So you have to look at how much you made off of each agent. That's per agent productivity. At the end of last year, what did you net off of everyone? There has to be at least a production minimum. $60,000. If you had a $60,000 job in most of the markets we live in, you couldn't even rent your own apartment and live outside your parents' house. So that creates clarity. Factor in your fixed versus variable costs. You know really how much you net. And remember the rule of one deal. If you could sell one more house and replace the income or make more of a profit than a team member, odds are you should really think about that team member twice. So now I'm sure you all have lots of questions. So this is a good place, safe space to talk about your personal situations, questions, challenges, how you create splits, how you share the value of it, How do you get agents that grow over time to still stay with you? Like these are all good areas to bring the conversation.
Hey, Chirag, I have a question. I'm an aspiring team leader slash maybe looking for a partnership, but I have a question for the group because I used to be on a team and I became a solo agent. And what is it that you guys offer these agents, as an incentive to sign up and be on your team? What's the value?
Well, I will say that it's a very long answer and it's probably not meant for this right now. And I would love to have a conversation with you outside of this.
Okay, because I was on a team and I didn't get anything, not even a phone call. So I never understood the value of an agent being on the team. That's why I asked the question.
Well,
I
sure.
can summarize it for you. It all teams, most teams are kind of varying from each other in one area or another. Some are very different from other teams. For our team, we're offering leads from different lead sources. We're offering support during the transaction with staff, also with advice, advising clients and making sure the deal gets across the finish line. We're also trying to create a team culture, if you will. So there's a group of people that are, helping each other, pushing each other, a base of operations. It gives someone, someone who's not a go-getter by themselves, it gives them more opportunity, I guess, in training. And then obviously we're offering Chirag training, and we have some other tools and different CRMs and lead sources that we're providing for them. And then we're having coaching calls and team meetings and things like that on regular intervals to help motivate them. If anybody remembers the video game Dig Dug, where you're underground and you pump up, I'm dating myself there, but that's what we do. We run around and pump up our agents and try not to pop them. But it's a lot of the people that are going to be looking to join a team are either going to be agents who are just looking for a comfort zone where they have some support, and maybe they've been in the industry for a little bit, but they're just looking for an easier method for them to get deals. And then you're also looking for brand new agents that you can help groom and train up.
Okay,
But the
great.
value adds are helping them in their career.
Okay, great. Thank you.
In a nutshell, it's like if you think about value, what can I do for you? So think about this, right? There's that magic question we have for buyers. What do you envision an agent doing for you, Wayne, right? That you feel you can't do yourself. You could turn that into a team question in an interview. What do you envision a team doing for you that you feel you can't do on your own? And this will tell you everything that they're looking for. And then, you're looking for that perpendicular alignment, right? Of like, this is what I offer, and this is what you need.
I like that. You taught us well on how to ask really good questions.
It's all about the questions. All right, what else do you guys have today, right? This is very direct to the point, and there's more time here that you all need to spend on going through this, building your budget, and really going through your numbers. And I'm generally an optimistic human, but when I find doing this with a lot of teams, once they start looking at the numbers, it's not pretty because no one taught you how to run a business this way. And we all just generally look at top line revenue. David, what do you have? You're on mute.
I got a question.
Okay, shoot.
Do you advise that agents, like agent members of a team, also go through this process personally to try to value what the team provides for them?
What do you mean each? Give me an example.
Well, there's a cost to being on a team generally, right?
Mhm.
You either get a lesser split or pay into the system like on our team. Um, Agents are always trying to value being in a team or working alone. And typically, if you work alone, you're going to make a higher split, right? As an individual agent at whatever company you're at. And I'm just wondering if there's also this same idea of formulaic something that I could provide to agents to show the value of being on our team.
Well, the first thing is we go back to our value proposition, right? It's asking people and your staff members what they use the most on the team. The second part of this is in your sales meetings, re-communicating the value that you offer and having agents share wins. The third one is really understanding which team members actually utilize the resources that you provide. So all of you guys provide coaching to your team. If they're not going to coaching, then odds are they're not getting a value, right? If you offer leads and they're not converting the leads because they don't want to practice or go to training or anything else, they're not getting value out of it, right? So you want to be really clear. If I'm looking at 10 people, like here are the 3 or 4 main things we offer that people really love, that they grow their business with, that helps them solve their problems that they uniquely couldn't on their own. And this is why they stay, and comparing that to what other people actually do. Yvette, we hope your mom is feeling better.
Well, I'll kill the awkward silence. I don't necessarily have a question, but I can say what Gary and I have been, the nut we've been trying to crack and the riddle we've been trying to solve has been we're in a smaller resort area, right? So there's roughly 300 agents. As you know, a few of us are doing the majority of the business, right? It's a limited talent pool, and we are kind of a unique, smaller brokerage, if you will, in our area. We opened up an office in Big Bear and also in Lake Arrowhead. So we have a couple team members in Lake Arrowhead. We've got a bigger team in Big Bear. Um, we've had a larger team at one point, and it's shrunk down a little bit. Um, for us, I think it's super key, and that it's confession time. We really need to get the value proposition ironed out and clearly articulated, and um, get it in a way that we can present it so that people up here, and we got to do some planning to make sure that what we're offering and everything it will be effective in bringing people over, because basically what we're up against is the age-old agent mentality of split. And there's a brokerage up here who's the biggest brokerage, who they're really an escrow office that they're Remax. I'll just put them out there. They offer incredibly high splits to their agents. And if you're a producer, the split is basically, 97, 98%, as long as you use their escrow, right? So it's really hard to bring over talent and bring over even team members from other teams that are on these really high splits, because we don't have that same advantage, right, of the split being
Well, the split's actually irrelevant, right? So when I worked at Compass, I would often, I worked in it was weird because I didn't belong to an org chart. And I just kind of worked for Rory. So some days I do recruiting, some days I go over here, some days I go over there. And so I used to get agents that would say, well, I'm at Remax and I have a 90%, 95% split, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I need to figure out a way to think through this, right? So really what it is one, you have the value proposition of Compass, right? So they don't have any of these tools. There's no Compass One, private exclusives, off-market properties, collections, any of these things, right? So the first thing is you want to get these people to self-identify what would happen in their business as a result of having the tools and resources of Compass plus your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a theory, right? This is called the movement marketing pyramid. There's a theory that says, well, if you come here and you join Compass and my team, all these things are going to happen. Then there's a how-to. This is how we make it happen. As a direct result of that, like what would 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deals mean to you? I think I do 5 more deals. Great. At 9,000, that's $45,000. If you had $45,000 extra this year, how would that impact your family or your life? And that's what you're selling people on, the destination, right? So the split's irrelevant, because I used to tell people like, well, all I care about is the split. Then I said, look, like respectfully, then just stay where you are. And what you're doing is this. And they're like, well, what's this? If your hand is closed, you can't let anything in. And by just being married to a split, what you're saying is no matter what resources, tools, support, and coaching I have, I'm never going to do more, be more, or have more. So I need to hold on to every dollar that I have. Because that's subconsciously what you're telling yourself.
Mhm. Right.
So if you're looking at a difference of 25% in the split, every $100,000 is $25,000. If the company and what Compass offers plus what you offer can at least 2, 3, 4x that amount, yeah, that's not a good fit. So it's all
Right.
about self-identification. David?
One thing that helped kind of change my mindset as I was growing a team, and I had a lot of trial and error, a lot of error. Somebody once said to me, if you make them money, they'll stay. And if they don't make money, they'll leave. And what that did for me is allowed me to kind of take the risk of sharing a lot of information. I've been doing this a long time. With the agents, like really give them advice. And I think part of the problem that I was having was I was wanting them on my team, but I didn't want to give them all the nuggets of stuff I'd learned in the fear they would leave and become competition. And once I got rid of that fear and started giving them better advice, and they started doing better and making more money. Now I did lose one person who left and took a lot and then left. But the other people on the team have actually done better and better through the years. And I just think that was something that was very helpful for me to kind of conceptualize with everybody. So the only problem is, and this is why I'm here, is time management. Is now I've got a lot of people buzzing around doing stuff, and my time has just become, precious.
It comes down to who you're spending time with and making money with.
Hmm.
Right. And then it's structured. Some people I meet with all my team members once a week for 30 minutes. Why? Like this whole idea of accountability, to me, they're adults. You don't, they're not your children. You don't need to say, hey, David, if you do these things, it's gonna be so great.
Right.
No,
Feels like it sometimes.
no, listen, my son's 9 years old, and there's two things that myself and my partner tell him every single day. You need responsibility for the outcomes that happen to you in your life, and you need to take the initiative to take your own actions. So if dad works till 1:30 in the morning and is not up with you at 6:30 to go in the gym, you got to go yourself. You can do push-ups, you can do sit-ups, you know how to turn the treadmill on, turn it off. Like you got to go on your own. You can't wait for people to punch a stamp for you to go.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I couldn't agree more. I think part of it with us, with the team meetings and things like that, is um, it, based on the small talent pool we have to draw from. You know what I mean? And they're constantly getting recruited. Come over here where the split is better. Come over here where the split is better. So it's just one of those things of trying to maintain the relationship, give them a forum. It feels like we need to do that to keep the team close. Otherwise, people drift and they lose orbit with the team. So that's a big reason why we're doing it. We do everything we can to encourage and give them tools and all that. But at the end of the day, I agree. You have to want it. I tell them that all the time. You got to want it. We can't want it for you. So totally agree with you in principle and all that. It's where we're struggling, I think, is when it comes to where the rubber meets the road. We'll lose team members to other places because of the grass is greener. You know what I mean? And then it's hard to recruit people over because and I agree. We talk about, your production will increase. At the end of the day, all that matters is what you're taking home, to a team member. So we can help you get there. And obviously your numbers need improvement, looking at their production and things like that. It's just difficult to get people to move offices. And that's why, being a smaller team or a small brokerage up here with some bigger brokerages, so they're constantly recruiting. Like Keller Williams has somebody on staff that's all their job is to recruit. So that's part of why we're having the team huddles and keeping the team tight. It's just because people will get picked off.
Look, you got to sell. Remember, we talk about feature, right? Here are all the things my team offer, benefit. Here's the way, it shows up in your business. destination is what they want for their business and life. Listen, there's a good people come for value and stay for culture. But remember, there's a difference. Phil Jackson said, he goes, we're not a family, we're a team. And teams are based on performance, right? So performers want to be around performers. I'm a performer, so I want to be around performers, right? I can candidly raise my hand and say this, and anyone could think what they want. It's my brain functions at such a high level that like I can understand with clients and people, like I can meet anybody where they are. But working with other consultants, staff members, and people, like, or even when I go out in the world, I'm used to talking to generally performers all day long. Right. So I have a hard time sometimes. I'm like, all right, you got to like slow it down 5 levels. Right. We were doing a meeting yesterday and they're like, Chirag is always 3 meetings ahead of all of us. That's just the way that my brain thinks, right? It thinks in systems and destinations and processes. So all of us are different, right? I don't know how people do business tracker, you can track teams revenue or something, or performance dashboard. Yeah, I think it's performance dashboard that tracks team members revenue. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, you can, everything's tracked in there.
Yeah.
So the stuff Chirag talked about can be tracked on the platform.
Which part?
Everything you talked about, like the variables and the fixed costs and stuff like that.
No, that you cannot track in Compass. That has to do with like your own accounting software and stuff.
Okay.
It's not like QuickBooks or anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So look,
They should add that.
yeah, I'll put that on my growing list of things I wish they did. Or wish they asked me about before they did something. Look, in the end, this is hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, right? Like these are people we're dealing with. We're not making decisions on spreadsheets and stuff. And like to some extent, we're married into what we're doing because when we did it, we thought it was the best idea in the world, right? Like if you have culture and you have a couple people that are like fun for the group, but they don't earn any money, watch, rising tide raises all ships, right? But it also allows other people to let them set a standard that you accept mediocrity.
Mhm.
Like anytime we hire for an open role, it's like, look, this is a great place for people that prioritize number one, professional development and growth. People that like building things. There's a certain degree of working in ambiguity because a lot of the stuff we're doing, like Compass One integrations, these systems, this office place, it's all innovative. So it's not like there's a fixed job that you show up every day that says, all right, you enter these invoices, you send, like, that's not what this is, right? So you have to be clear on who the right people are. Right? Then it's leverage, right? The other point is you have staff members doing things that you can pay virtual assistants in other countries $5 an hour. And now with the emergence of ChatGPT, the whole language barrier is gone. So I'm going to, you've, and Gary and John, you've been here a while, you know, I'm always like, I don't believe in hiring people. Well, we're working on doing our first set for this because there's a new process that somebody else introduced that I'm working with that actually used to work at Compass, where you can literally give him a wish list of the stuff. He whips it into a job description. He helps you get the right person, right? And that's the hardest part for agents. They don't know what they want. And I was actually pretty impressed when I talked to the company, right? They had like 30, 60, 90-day benchmarks. They had KPIs to measure. It's like all the stuff that we don't have for most of our employees. So if that's of any interest to you, just shoot me a message and I'll connect you. But it's a really interesting way to scale your operations as well as your value add to your team members. Because when you get something at like, you know, $5 an hour, it's very different than paying somebody 80 grand a year here. All right, everybody. Another great discussion. So love in my heart. I love you all. Listen, stay optimistic. Let the numbers speak for themselves and just be open to like pushing yourself more. And look, in the absence of value, there's only price. So just get really clear on your value proposition, what you offer and how it shows up for the people that are already winning on your team, and use those people to share in your sales meetings, your team meetings, and anywhere else you can, their wins, and that will start bringing other people up. And again, Yvette, I hope your mom feels better. And thank you for joining us. And everybody, I will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.